Welcome, everybody. It's the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida television network. Happy you've tuned in this evening. Before we get everything started, let you know how to get in contact with the show and all of that. Let me address some of the things that I said yesterday on the program and why I was maybe a little more passionate about things as it pertains to the Second Amendment. As you all know, I'm a conservative. That trumps political party. That trumps almost everything, with the exception of faith in God and love for my family. The reason I was so passionate was because this idea of defending one's family, of defending one's community, defending one's church is somewhat universal. I think that no matter which way you look at the shooting, not only the shooting in Texas, but the shooting with that black church, South Carolina, with Dylan Roof. What failed wasn't we the people. What failed was government. A government system that certain people out there, and dare I say, Republicans and Democrats, gave you and I the illusion was going to protect us. Gave you and I the illusion that this is what we need to do. Universal background checks going to make us safe. And nothing could have been further from the truth. Now, one side, mostly the Democrats, mostly the liberal persuasion, they will say to you, well, universal background checks going to take it all so we can disarm you. We can take away your guns. You don't need an AR-15. To which every American who's got a mind for liberty and freedom will say, thank goodness and thank God our rights are not predicated on what you liberals think I need. It turns out the shooter in Texas was confronted by a man with a gun, and not just a gun that liberals have deemed an assault weapon. And there's no such thing. For those of you who don't know a lot about guns, assault weapon is a made-up term. It doesn't exist. It doesn't classify anything. It's not an official classification. It's meant to scare you, which is precisely what they have tried to do, make you afraid to defend yourself. Also by giving you the illusion that the government can protect you. And it can't. The people in Houston during Hurricane Harvey recognized that when the chips were down, despite billions upon billions upon billions of dollars confiscated by the federal government for its infrastructure, for FEMA and for other things, at the end of the day, the rescue operations were made successful not by the government, but by everyday Americans helping each other. Now, that doesn't mean that you get rid of FEMA. That doesn't mean you do away with background checks. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that those dishonest voices, those liars out there who say, hey, just a universal background check and you can get rid of your weapons and we feel good about taking away your rights. They are the ones who are disingenuous. They are the ones who are not being honest. Do not allow them to do this. I don't care which way you vote. Democrat, Republican. Understand that no government scheme is going to perfect man, and government can't be there all the time when you need it. And it's almost never there at the instant you need it. So the solution is realizing you are the best first responder. You are the one who is the best first responder. You are the one that your family will look to protect them, not the federal government. And I think that's the lesson we should take away from what happened in Texas. That it was a citizen who was trained, utilizing his Second Amendment rights, who stopped the carnage. It wasn't the government. It wasn't their vaunted background checks. So, you have your background checks. Let's keep them. Let's make them the best thing we can, with the recognition that they will fail, because they have failed and they'll continue to fail, because government isn't perfect, because government is made up of human beings. So when they do fail, and they inevitably will, When they do fail, make sure you have the right to protect yourself. Because when government fails, well, you could die if you're not there to protect yourself. There's that. Also want to say a couple of things about the elections that happened yesterday. Well, you know, what are you going to do? Or Tuesday, I should say. The Democrats were in charge in New Jersey before the election. And guess what? They're in charge after the election. They were in charge in Virginia before the election, and they're in charge after the election. Did the Democrats really pick up anything? Maybe a couple of races here and there on the state level and some of the legislatures, but by and large, the Democrats held. That's not a victory, folks. That's just stopping the bleeding. I think you can say that Donald Trump's victory streak, his winning streak, ended on Tuesday night's elections. We might talk about that with our second segment guest coming up. Meantime, here's how you get in touch with the show. The Chris Salcedo Show can be found on the web at Chris Salcedo TX on Twitter, at ChrisSalcedotX, instantaneous feedback there, or leave feedback for us on ChrisSalcedo.com. That's voicemail or email. All right, another issue that's happening out there that I think is pertinent to talk about is this meltdown, and we haven't had a chance to talk much about this because of the shooting and other issues that have cropped up. This meltdown on the Democrat side. Now, you hear much about the Republican Civil War, and it's true, it's there. Don't mistake me. I'm not defending the Republican establishment. They have really mishandled a lot of things. But it is just as bad, if not worse, on the Democrat side. Donna Brazile, who is a former DNC chairwoman, lifelong Democrat, and a big-time Democrat political operative, has come out with a book. And many of us believe it's a book where she's telling the truth. And she's telling the truth about Hillary. And she's telling the truth about the Democrats. And the Democrats don't like it because what do the Democrats do? They like to lie. The Democrats like to lie to their voters. That's what Barack Obama did his entire occupation of the Oval Office. Mr. President, we have ISIS. Let me be clear. ISIS is a JV team. Complete lie. Mr. Obama, we need to pass Obamacare. Let me be clear. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Like your plan, keep your plan. Save $2,500. Let me be clear. All lies. What was another one? Oh, yeah. Mr. Obama, we've got terrorism still running rampant around the globe. Let me be clear. Al-Qaeda is on the path of defeat. His job was to lie to you so he wouldn't have to do anything. Let me be clear. Nothing to see here in North Korea. Let me be clear. We're Iran. It's not a threat to the United States. Lies after lies after lies. That's what Democrats believe their job is to do, is to lie to you. So here comes Donna Brazile telling the truth about what happened, that the Democrat primary was rigged. And she writes a book about it. And here comes the mainstream press turning on this black woman. Listen to the amount of consternation at CBS challenging Donna Brazile.
I read the book that you were upset with Robbie Mook, certainly. You also sound very angry with Hillary Clinton. Yes, the hacking.
Angry. See, look, Donna Brazile's shaking her head. Oh, no, come on. They're using the same terminology that they tried to use on us. Oh, you're just angry. You're an angry Donald Trump supporter, or you're just an angry Republican or an angry conservative. They're doing the same to her. You see her smile? Donna Brazile is getting the full treatment of how it feels to be treated like a Republican or a conservative.
Hacking was an issue.
My emotions are my emotions, but there's no question that I was very upset at the time because, look, I'm chair of the party. I have a lot of skin in the game. I don't report to the Democratic establishment. I report to the voters.
Mm-hmm. What's going on here? Why is Donna Brazile doing this? There are theories floating around out there, and I'll share that here in a minute. This interview at CBS continued.
I also wanted the candidate in her campaign to respect the Democratic National Committee. I was an officer of the DNC, and I felt that my job was to protect the Democratic National Committee, which meant all of the candidates, not just the presidential, but the down-ballot candidates as well.
And what did Hillary Clinton do? She came in, and she basically said, oh, all of this debt that you are under right now because Barack Obama neglected you. Remember Barack Obama? He just ignored the DNC, raised a whole bunch of money for himself. a narcissist. I mean, it was all about him anyway, in his little mind. So the Democrat National Committee was in complete shambles. So Hillary Clinton comes in with all of her big donors and says, all right, I'll bail you out, but I control everything, says Hillary Clinton. And she did. Now, we'll get into the legality of all of this shortly. But Donna Brazile, upon coming out and writing these things, do you think this widely respected black woman was met with open arms by the establishment of the Democrat Party, the left-wing loons who now run it? Well, let's see what Robbie Mook, Hillary Clinton's white campaign manager, had to say about this black woman who many believe is telling the truth about what happened in the Democrat primary and in the election of 2016.
I'm sure Donna was under a lot of pressure from her publisher to put this book out right on this election week when we have critical elections happening around the country. I wish she just put her foot down and said no.
So what was the response of Robbie Mook, a white campaign organizer for a white woman in last presidential election, a Democrat? His response was to basically call Donna Brazile a liar, that she's fabricating everything in her book to sell books. Now, had somebody like me or a Republican said this of Donna Brazile, we'd be accused of what? We'd be accused of racism. But because it's Robbie Mook, a left-wing extremist, he can call Donna Brazile a liar, a black Democrat woman, and he can get away with it. It's A-okay for him to do that kind of nonsense. Do you think that's A-okay in your book? Jason Chaffetz, who is a former congressman from Utah, this is more than just Democrat inside politics. This is more than just the Democrats lying about who they are and what they are and then stabbing each other in the back, which, you know, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, the Democrat Party is basically the Sith. Always stabbing each other in the back, but they never rat each other out. They're always very loyal because they fear what's going to be done to them. By the way, something else Donna Brazile revealed. Donna Brazile revealed that when Seth Rich, he was the Democrat National Committee underling who was killed, many speculated because he knew something about what was now being revealed as corruption in the DNC. Donna Brazile wrote in her book that shook her, that she drew the shades in her apartment because she was afraid of a sniper who was going to take vengeance on her. Anyway, so illegality going on, according to Jason Chaffetz, former Republican congressman.
I think the most serious allegation is this joint fundraising agreement. That may have been actually money laundering. I think one of her frustrations is she couldn't bring in impartial staff, that Clinton had signed this document basically saying, I'll help you raise money, but then you have to hire my people. Well, there's a reason why there are campaign contribution limits. You can't do that. That's called money laundering. And I think there's a real legal liability.
Yeah, probably a real. Now, so Hillary Clinton facing what? A potential of 13 charges when it comes to the Fusion GPS paying for the fake dossier. And now we're hearing that there's a possibility she could be trying to get a second dossier from the same disgraced British intelligence officer. Holy moly. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So not only 13 charges there, but money laundering charges with her activities at the DNC. And many conservatives are asking, why isn't this woman under indictment? Where's Jeff Sessions? Where's the Attorney General? Now, why is Donna Brazile doing all this? Folks are speculating that she is clearing the decks for Michelle Obama. I heard this on the Rush Limbaugh program earlier, I think it was yesterday or day before last. Clearing the decks for a Michelle Obama run for the White House. That's what the speculation is out there. A couple of callers said it, and I think Rush agreed with it. Absolutely amazing if this is true, that Donna Brazile is trying to finally expunge the Clintons from from the Democrat Party and to make way for the great Michelle Obama. Oh, God help the country if that is the case. All right, coming up, we'll turn our attention to international affairs because the president is overseas in Asia, and that pivot comes your way next here on the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide on the Vida television network. Stay with me, folks. And welcome back, everybody. It's the Chris Salcedo Show. Joining me now, Herb London, president of the London Center for Policy Research. He's responsible for creating the Gallatin School of Individualized Study in 1972. He was the dean until 1992. He's appeared in every major newspaper and journal in the country. Mr. London, welcome back to the Salcedo Show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right, let's talk about things that we've been ignoring here. Not only President Trump's overseas trip, but things that are happening in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia because, frankly, we've been focused on a lot of domestic policies, elections, and shootings. This has gone largely unreported. Let's dive into Saudi Arabia first. As my understanding is certain members of the royal family are arresting other members of the royal family on corruption charges, money laundering charges, all manner of things. Break down what is actually going on here. What are we seeing?
Well, it's a tumultuous series of events. The Crown Prince, who is 32 years old, has taken control of the country by consolidating his power. What he is saying, in effect, is, I want to modernize Saudi Arabia, and the only way to do that is to take control of the country by ousting so many of the members of my family who are not going to be involved in the changes that are occurring. He is moving towards modernization. He's allowing women to play a role that they have not played in before. He's betting on a kind of demographic change in Saudi Arabia. Since 70% of the Saudis are under 30 years old, he's thinking they prefer rock music and entertainment to the rigidities of the Islamic faith. And so this is a very, very serious change that is occurring. He's taken over the wealth of the country. He's taken the direction of the country, and he's waiting for his father to provide the assistance on this matter. His father is suffering from Alzheimer's, will probably be gone in at least within the year. And so here's a young man who will be the next king of the country, but not only king, he will control all of the forces, all of the elements in the country, including the National Guard and the Army.
Well, okay, and then that begs the question, is he a moderating force? Is he part of the Wahhabist movement? What are his politics? Are his objectives to normalize relationships with the West and keep that relationship with the United States going, or is he going the other direction?
Well, look, he's taking a bet that in 20 years the Saudi oil will not be responsible for the economy. As a consequence, he's saying liberalization is absolutely necessary if the Saudis are going to be part of the modern world. So in some sense, you might describe him as a liberal. He is unquestionably going to challenge the Wahhabist clerics. The clerics are not happy with him. But at the same time, they have to recognize the fact that he is the monarch and he's controlling the country. So it's a question, the question that arises is, despite the tension in the country, the Wahhabists in the end will probably have to accede to his authority.
Okay, so
one might say, from a Western perspective, this is a kind of dictatorial control. On the other hand, take into account the history of Saudi Arabia. He is now saying the Saudis, which are among the most backward nation in the world, at least culturally, will now be moving into the modern world, not unlike what we saw with the Shah in Iran. But again, it's a very tense situation, a very difficult situation, and he is saying only that branch of his family will have authority.
All right, so from a West's perspective, he's a moderating force.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Very well. Herb London, our guest right now, folks, London Center for Policy Research. Let's pivot from the kingdom, if we can, and Middle Eastern concerns over to Asia, and where Trump is on another historic trip abroad. Let's deal with the South and North Korean situations. Some have classified Donald Trump's rhetoric as caustic, as provocative. Others have said that this is precisely what the West needs to quit hiding behind skirts of timidity and actually take a strong stand against Kim Jong-un and what's happening in that country. What is your read on this situation?
Well, I tend to fall into the latter group. And the reason why I do is that we've had both Democratic and Republican presidents who have, and I hate this metaphor, kicked the can down the road. Well, now there's no can and there's no road. We know that the North Koreans are capable of reaching the United States. We know that their ICBMs could unquestionably reach Alaska. We are aware of the fact that they might be able to travel as far east as Chicago. We are aware of the fact that they have miniaturized nuclear devices that they can put on ICBMs. The intelligence programs in the past always indicated that the North Koreans would not be capable of doing this until at least 2022. We now know that they've accelerated their program. They can move ahead. So for us to simply say, well, you know what, we'll avert our gaze. We will not engage the North Koreans. We'll not worry about the situation. We will not engage them either rhetorically or militarily is absurd. Now Donald Trump is saying we do not have the luxury of doing that. We've got to act in a different manner. Right.
And because as you've aptly stated, the road has run out. We have to do something else that's kind of different. The linchpin in all of this, of course, has been and continues to be the People's Republic of China. And Trump's visit there is twofold. And I'm speculating that there's a bit of carrot and stick here, because you've got the economic situation with the currency manipulation and how much China is reliant on our consumer-driven economy here to continue to finance their goals. However, Donald Trump needs its cooperation on North Korea to denuclearize that peninsula. If you were advising the president, how would you recommend that he use these levers at his disposal to maybe put some leverage on the People's Republic of China to do what the West needs it to do?
One of the things you have to understand, all of the transactions in Asia are in dollar-denominated funds. We can freeze every bank in Asia. We can make it impossible for China to engage in any trade. The Chinese provide 90% of all of the food and fuel that goes into North Korea. If you do not have fuel, you do not have electricity. If you do not have electricity, you do not have computers. If you do not have computers, you're not firing ICBMs. So keep in mind that the Chinese have tremendous leverage here. What the president is saying to the Chinese is use that leverage to control North Korea. You do not want a war on the peninsula. We do not want a war that would obviously flow into China as well. So if you want to avoid that, there are things that you can do. You're not doing enough at the moment. The Chinese 2 weeks ago at the United Nations proposed a freeze on North Korea. What they meant by that is freeze all North Korean tests, freeze all North American or American military activity. It's an absurd proposition, largely because it creates a kind of moral equivalence between the United States and North Korea. And I think our ambassador to the UN, Haley, made it perfectly clear that this is absurd. However, one part of that equation is very interesting. The Chinese, for the first time, admitted that they could control what the North Koreans are doing with their testing. If that is true, that is the basis for negotiation.
Well,
of course, that involves verification and a variety of other things. But it's the first time the Chinese have said we can control North Korean testing.
Well, what about this economic stick that the United States wields? And, you know, Donald Trump has been very upfront that he is unhappy with the trade imbalance. I mean, it is immense, our trade imbalance with China. Is there a bit of leverage he can use? Maybe not look the other way, but temper our insistence that we get right with that trade imbalance to allow China to adjust rather than insist it happens right away, on the condition that they actually impose their will, as you aptly point out, they're able to do on North Korea?
Well, look, I think that the president is talking about carrots and sticks. I mean, obviously, we want to continue to maintain some sort of trade with China. It's in the interest of the United States as well. But at the same time, when it comes to North Korea, we know that the Chinese have the leverage over this country. We know full well that the Chinese are quite capable of doing more than they're doing. So the president is going to say, we don't want to apply the stick to our trade understandings, but if we have to, we will. We are counting on you to do more than you're doing. We know you can control this rather irrational figure, Kim Jong-un, and it's time for you to do so. So it's a question of what the Chinese want to do. Keep in mind that this has been a very useful alliance for the Chinese. Having the North Koreans is like having a beast in the cage. Every once in a while, you rattle the cage, and the West responds accordingly. Whenever there's a challenge to the Chinese hegemonic role in the Pacific, they bring out this beast, and they say, okay, you make some noises around the globe. So this is not exactly a disadvantage for the Chinese. We've got to make it clear that the disadvantages that we will introduce with trade control and currency control are more significant than the advantages you're presently receiving.
Last thing, if we can just turn briefly to domestic politics. I know you're well aware of the election results that saw the Democrats hold New Jersey and the Democrats hold Virginia. The left side of the equation is saying this is a repudiation of Donald Trump. There are people like me who are saying, well, wait a minute, holding your own and maybe stopping Trump's momentum where that might be a victory, you didn't gain anything, you just held. Where are you on the Democrats' victories in the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia?
Well, keep in mind both New Jersey and Virginia are blue states. The large Democratic majority simply came to the fore. I don't think that you can extrapolate from this experience and say, we know what's going to happen in the congressional races in 2018. I mean, if you can tell me that, then you can probably tell me who's going to win the Kentucky Derby. I mean, this is impossible. So I think that it's a foolhardy conclusion to draw. I do think that it's a setback for the Republican Party, but keep in mind it was largely anticipated. If Gillespie actually won in Virginia, that would have been a great surprise and a great boost to the fortunes of the Republican Party. But it's also interesting to look at the direction of the state of Virginia. It is moving more and more in a Democratic direction and has done so in the last few elections.
Yeah, true. And it's a virtue of the fact that a lot of those folks work in Washington and they rely on a big, massive government that is always courtesy of the Democrat Party. Herb London, everybody, president of the London Center for Policy Research. Sir, always appreciate you being here on the Salcedo Show.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's going to do it for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide. If you want to get in touch with the program, talk about anything that we've talked about tonight, give me your opinion. Go to chrissalcedo.com, ChrisSalcedo.com. There you can leave a voicemail. There you can leave an email. Don't forget, your submissions can be used here on the air, and we'll do our best to address any of the questions or concerns that you may have or start a debate that you may want to have. If you want instantaneous feedback, go to Twitter at Chris Salcedo TX, at ChrisSalcedoTX, as in Texas, the freest state in the union. Folks, have a great night. Back here tomorrow on the Vida television network for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide.